Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Power Law Investor. Today is September 10th, 2024, a Tuesday, and we will be discussing how the daily dollar cost averaging using the Power Law to make investments in Bitcoin and Kaspa is coming along. Again, this is not financial advice, it's only for informational purposes. And we'll be talking more about the power law, and particularly with regards to Kaspa, given the recent volatility that we've experienced in the market. So, as a reminder, the power law is just the trend line of the price data relative to time. So, let's take a quick look at that by moving over here and looking at this. So this is for Bitcoin. This is in log space, and the orange line is the trend line of the blue lines, which is the price, right? And so this trend line is in log space and has a very high R squared value, which means that a large amount of the price variation with respect to time is explained by the orange line. Okay. And using this equation, we can project forward into time, and assuming that the trend line holds, that is, the future is like the past, we can estimate what the price is going to be 6 months, 1 year into the future. Now, again, this trend line over here that you can see is linear. It's a line in log space, but when we convert it to linear space, it becomes this curved line. Okay. And as I mentioned, these are the calculations based on the current price of Bitcoin, which is 57135. Let's take a look at the Kaspa price too. So Bitcoin's trading about 57,500, and Kaspa is about 16.5 cents. So what happened this last week in terms of volatility? Well, we can take a look at the graph and see what happened. Let's start off with Bitcoin first. That'll give us some ideas here. So we can see this is the Bitcoin graph. I'll zoom out so you can see clearly. And this is over a long time scale. But if we look over a much shorter time scale, in the last weeks or so, it's been bouncing around quite a lot. And recently, it bounced down even low, all the way down to 53K. Now, these are the dailies. So intraday price went down lower than that also. But as you can see, that was quite concerning for the crypto market, the crypto Twitter market. The mood was very glum. And we can see that it almost dropped down to the 50% discount line over here. So there was a lot of panic going on in the market. People thought Bitcoin could keep on dropping, and it was a monster drop. But let's take a look at this. Based on what the power law is saying, we were only at a minus 30% discount. We barely hit that. We could easily have gotten a lot lower to the minus 40. And not too long ago, it was at the minus 50 in October. So this is one reason why we keep 20% of the DCA focused into cash, because we may get opportunities to invest and put in our money when the prices drop down considerably. Okay. So yeah, that was quite the change, but we were able to try the change in prices. But more importantly than what was happening in Bitcoin for our portfolio in particular, not the market as a whole, was what the impact on Kaspa was, right? Because Kaspa has been bouncing around on its orange trend line for a while and gotten even lower and hit the minus 40% trend line, which was at 16 cents or so, but then it dipped below that. And typically, Kaspa has not bounced. Typically, when it hits the purple trend line, let's zoom out again, or even the orange trend line, it tends to bounce up. And maybe we can look at some of the earlier behavior out there that, yeah, it did bounce off this purple trend line, the minus 40 trend line in the past, but that was in May of 2023. Whereas now, if we zoom out, we've been bouncing below the trend line for a while, and then we hit the purple trend line and dipped below that. So it was quite worrying. And again, this is when we have to take into account, okay, how many days of data do we have? How confident are we that the price action is going to be going in the right direction eventually? How much faith do we have in the trend line? And typically, I'm not saying you should be putting in the full 100% of your portfolio or going all in, but buying around the purple line is pretty good, and the 50% line seems to be a really line in the sand. We only have gotten wicks there in the past. You can't see them on this graph because it's only the daily prices. And in the minus 50%, we were looking at around 13-ish cents. So we got to a tad just above 14, just above 14 cents. So far the price looks like it's bouncing up already. If we see what the price today is, at 16.5 cents. This is a little delayed from earlier in the day. And really doesn't change our plan too much. We had limit orders in place for 1.135 cents and 0.125 cents, but those did not trigger. So that's okay. We'll still keep the cash in reserve. And as you can see, because of the dollar cost averaging, we were able to buy more Bitcoin at the price when it was 53 versus when it was, say, 57, right? And what that has resulted eventually is that overall, since we started the portfolio, we are tracking to be almost on par, slightly below what we've put in. But just a few days ago, it was as low as 6 or 8% below what the initial value had been put in. So if you're going to invest with the power law, it does give you some insight into what the future is. But again, it's a long-term perspective, right? So in the short term, there's going to be tremendous volatility, and there's no risk. There's no free lunch. If we want the higher returns, we're likely going to have to deal with some crazy volatility. But the power law does give us some broad parameters to make us realize, hey, is this a big issue or is this not a big issue? And that's really what I enjoyed. In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And in this case, the one-eyed man is the power law that we're known about. So we will continue with our DCA. Let's just take a quick look at what the current DCA structure tells us. The allocation is 55% to Kaspa, more or less, and 25% to Bitcoin, and we're keeping 20% in cash. So we see some variations from that, but most of the time, unless we see a serious deviation, this is kind of what the target allocation is going to look like. And it adjusts dynamically every day, but you need big changes in prices or big changes in the power law estimation in order to pull these percentages away. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this particular week 4 update. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe and comment below what you'd like to see next. I'll see you on the next one.